May 29th, 1925. Deep in Brazil's Mato Grosso region, at a camp known as Dead Horse Camp, three men wrote what would become their final words to the civilized world. The letter contained a single haunting line that would echo through history. You need have no fear of any failure. Those words would become the cruelest irony of the 20th century's greatest exploration mystery. Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, his 21-year-old son Jack, and Jack's best friend Raleigh Rimmel walked into the green hell of the Amazon that day. They never walked out. What happened to them in that verdant darkness has spawned 100 expeditions, claimed over 100 lives, and created a mystery that haunts us still. Because Percy Fawcett wasn't just looking for a lost city. He was looking for the birthplace of human civilization itself. And perhaps, just perhaps, he found it. The Victorian gentleman who stood at Dead Horse Camp that morning was no ordinary British officer. Born in Devon in 1867, Fawcett had served the empire in Ceylon, Malta, and Hong Kong. But his soul belonged to the blank spaces on the map, the places where cartographers simply wrote unexplored. In 1906, the Royal Geographical Society sent him to survey the Bolivia-Brazil border. It was supposed to be a simple mapping expedition. Instead, it became an infection. The Amazon got into his blood like a fever. 7 times he entered that green cathedral. 7 times he emerged with tales that defied belief. Stories of anacondas, 62 feet long. Of tribes that could kill with poisoned darts from shadows you'd never see. Of stone cities, swallowed by vines. The 8th time, the jungle kept him. Fawcett's obsession had a name. He called it Z, not El Dorado, that tired Spanish dream of golden cities. Z was something far older, far more important. In Rio de Janeiro's National Library, Fawcett had discovered a document that changed everything. Manuscript 512. Written in 1743, it told of Portuguese bandeirantes who stumbled upon a magnificent stone city deep in the Brazilian interior. They described arches, statues, hieroglyphics, unlike anything known to history. A dead city of impossible antiquity. Most scholars dismissed it as fantasy. Fawcett knew better. He'd seen things in the jungle. Stone structures that shouldn't exist. Pottery fragments from civilizations that predated anything in the Americas. Stories from indigenous tribes about the old ones, who built in stone before the forest came. Zed wasn't just a city. It was proof that everything we believed about human civilization was wrong. By 1925, Fawcett had it all figured out. The location, the route, the approach. Years of calculating, correlating native legends with geographical features, studying the patterns of rivers and mountains. Z lay somewhere beyond Dead Horse Camp, at approximately 10 degrees south latitude. He was certain. So certain that he convinced his own son to join him. Jack Fawcett was everything his father had once been. Young, strong, fearless. At 21, he burned with the same fever for discovery. Raleigh Rimmel, Jack's childhood friend, completed the trio. 3 men against the Amazon. The odds were impossible. They knew it. They went anyway. The preparation was meticulous. Fawcett had learned from 7 previous expeditions. No large party this time. Large groups moved slowly, attracted hostile attention, required massive supplies. 3 men could move like ghosts. They took only essentials: rifles, ammunition, surveying instruments, gifts for the tribes, and Fawcett's secret weapon, the knowledge of where Z actually was. Or so he believed. April 20th, 1925. They departed from Cuiabá, the last outpost of what could loosely be called civilization. The early stages went smoothly. They followed established trails, stayed at fazendas, ranches carved from the jungle's edge. The ranchers warned them. The rains were coming early. The tribes were restless. Strange things had been seen in the forest. Fawcett dismissed it all. He'd heard such warnings before. May 29th. Dead Horse Camp, named for the pack animal that died there on one of Fawcett's previous expeditions. From here they would leave all known trails behind. Fawcett wrote to his wife Nina. His handwriting was steady, confident. You need have no fear of any failure. I know my route well. In 2 years' time, I shall be back. He gave the letter to the native guides who would take it back to civilization. Then the three men shouldered their packs and walked into the green wall. The jungle closed behind them like a door. What happened next has been pieced together from fragments, rumors, tribal stories, expeditions that found clues, but never answers. We know they headed northeast from Dead Horse Camp into the territory of the Xingu River tribes. The Kalapalo people later reported seeing 3 white men. The older one was sick, coughing constantly, but still walking, still determined. They stayed near the Kalapalo village for several days. The tribesmen warned them not to continue east. That direction led to the territory of the fierce Suya tribe. The Suya killed all outsiders, no exceptions. Fawcett thanked them for the warning and headed east anyway. The last confirmed sighting. 3 figures disappearing into the morning mist, the jungle swallowing them whole. Then silence, a silence that would last forever. By October 1925, concern was growing. Fawcett had said 2 years, but he'd also promised regular communications. Native runners were supposed to carry messages out. No messages came. Nina Fawcett remained optimistic. Her husband had disappeared before. In 1911, he'd been presumed dead for 5 months. But this felt different. The silence was too complete, too final. 1926 arrived with no word. The Royal Geographical Society began to worry. The newspapers that had funded part of the expedition demanded answers. Where was the famous Percy Fawcett? The first rescue expedition was organized in 1927. George Miller Dyott, another explorer, followed Fawcett's presumed route. He found traces, a nameplate from Fawcett's trunk, signs of camps, but no bodies, no definitive proof. The Kalapalo chief told Dyott a disturbing story. 3 white men had stayed with them, then left, heading east, despite warnings. Days later, smoke was seen rising from that direction. The smoke of a signal fire, a fire that burned for 3 days, then stopped. Forever. What Dyott didn't know was that this was just the beginning of an obsession that would claim more lives than Fawcett's expedition ever could. Because the jungle doesn't just swallow men, it swallows those who search for the swallowed. Over the next decades, the rescue expeditions became legion. In 1928, a French engineer named Stéphane Ratin claimed he'd met an old Englishman held captive by Indians. He mounted an expedition. Ratin was never seen again. In 1930, journalist Albert de Winton went looking for Fawcett. He vanished. In 1931, Swiss trapper Stéphane Ratin tried. He sent one last message. I'm being held captive by Indians. Then nothing. The jungle had started collecting searchers like trophies. Each expedition that disappeared added another layer to the mystery. Were they finding Fawcett and being killed to keep the secret? Or was the jungle itself simply that deadly? In 1932, a German named Stéphane Ratin claimed to have found Fawcett living as a chief among Indians. He organized an expedition to make contact. Neither he nor his team returned. The pattern was becoming horrifying. The Amazon wasn't just keeping Fawcett, it was keeping everyone who looked for him. By 1934, over 100 people had died searching for the lost expedition. The Brazilian government officially discouraged further searches, but still they came. Adventurers, journalists, mystics, all drawn by the mystery, all feeding the green god of the Amazon. Then, in 1951, something changed. Orlando Villas-Boas, a Brazilian activist working with indigenous tribes, made a shocking announcement. The Kalapalo chief, Izarari, had confessed. They had killed the three Englishmen. According to Izarari, Fawcett had slapped a Kalapalo warrior, a mortal insult. The tribe followed the expedition and killed them as they camped by the Kuluane River. The bodies were thrown in the lake. Villas-Boas even produced bones. A skull that might have been Fawcett's. The mystery was solved. Or was it? The Royal Geographical Society was skeptical. The bones didn't match Fawcett's height. The dental records were wrong. And why had the Kalapalo waited 26 years to confess? In 1998, DNA testing became available. The bones were tested against DNA from Fawcett's surviving relatives. The results were definitive. The bones were not Percy Fawcett's. The mystery deepened. If the Kalapalo hadn't killed them, what happened? New theories emerged, some based on evidence, others on dreams and visions. Nina Fawcett, Percy's wife, claimed she received psychic messages from her husband. He was alive, she insisted, living in an underground city. He couldn't leave because his knowledge was too important. She believed this until her death in 1954. Others suggested Fawcett never intended to return. He'd spoken of founding a commune in the jungle, a theosophical community based on his occult beliefs. Because Fawcett wasn't just an explorer, he was a mystic, a believer in the hidden masters of humanity. Perhaps Z wasn't a dead city at all. Perhaps it was very much alive. In the 1960s, Danish explorer Arne Falkren claimed he'd met Fawcett's son Jack, living with an indigenous tribe, having gone native, refusing to return. But when investigators tried to verify this, they found nothing. Just another ghost story in a jungle full of ghosts. The 21st century brought new technology to the search: satellite imagery, LiDAR scanning that could penetrate the jungle canopy. In 2005, something remarkable appeared on the satellite images: geometric patterns in the jungle, exactly where Fawcett had predicted Z would be. Archaeologist Michael Heckenberger investigated. He found evidence of a massive pre-Columbian civilization: roads, bridges, plazas, a network of cities that could have supported millions, all dating from 800 to 1600 AD. Fawcett had been right. There had been a great civilization in the Amazon, but it had died centuries before he arrived. Or had it? In 2017, a new document surfaced, a letter from Fawcett that had been hidden in private archives. In it, he wrote something chilling. If we do not return, do not come looking for us. We will have found what we sought and chosen to remain. What did he mean? Had Fawcett always intended this to be a one-way journey? The indigenous peoples of the Shingur region tell their own stories. They speak of the three white men who came seeking the forbidden city, the city that must not be found. They say the earth swallowed them, not the jungle, the earth itself, because some places are not meant for modern men. Some knowledge is too dangerous to possess. Today, the Amazon is revealing its secrets. LiDAR technology has discovered dozens of lost cities, massive earthworks, sophisticated agricultural systems, evidence of millions of people living in what we thought was pristine wilderness. Fawcett was right about almost everything. There were great cities. There was an advanced civilization. The only thing he was wrong about was thinking he could find it and return. Because the Amazon doesn't give up its secrets freely. It demands payment. And the payment is always the same. Those who seek its mysteries become part of them forever. Recent expeditions have found tantalizing clues. A compass that might have been Fawcett's, machete, marks on trees that could be decades old, stories from uncontacted tribes about white men who lived and died among them generations ago. But no bodies, no definitive proof. It's as if the three men simply dissolved into the green, became one with the jungle they tried to conquer. In 2018, a filmmaker named James Gray directed The Lost City of Z. He spent months in the Amazon researching. He came to a disturbing conclusion. The jungle, he said, doesn't just kill you, it erases you. It removes all trace that you ever existed. That's what happened to Fawcett. Not death. Erasure. Complete and total obliteration from the physical world. But perhaps that's what Fawcett wanted all along. In his final letter to his wife, there's a line that everyone overlooks. I have no fear of death. Death is merely a doorway to something greater. What if Fawcett found his doorway? What if sea wasn't a place but a passage? A way to transcend the physical world entirely. The Kalapalo people, after decades of changing stories, now say something consistent. The three men walked into the forest. The forest accepted them. That's their word. Accepted. Not killed. Not captured. Accepted. As if the jungle itself made a choice. Modern archaeologists working in the area report strange experiences. Equipment failures that can't be explained. Compasses that spin wildly. GPS devices that show impossible locations. And always, the feeling of being watched. Not by animals or people, by the forest itself, as if it's deciding whether to accept them too, or reject them back to civilization. Dr. Michael Heckenberger, who spent decades studying the region, says something profound. The Amazon isn't wilderness. It's a garden. A vast, ancient garden, cultivated for thousands of years. And like any garden, it has a gardener. Perhaps Fawcett met the gardener. Perhaps that's why he never came back. The truth is, we'll never know what happened at Dead Horse Camp. We'll never know what Fawcett saw in those final days. But we know this. Three men walked into the Amazon, seeking a lost city. And whether they found it or not, they became part of its legend. Forever. The jungle keeps its secrets. And Percy Fawcett is now one of them. His bones, if they still exist, lie somewhere in that green immensity. His story, however, lives on. A warning, a temptation, a reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some doors once opened can never be closed. And some men, in seeking to write history, become history instead. The lost city of Z may or may not exist. But the lost expedition of Percy Fawcett, that will live forever. In every shadow of the Amazon. In every unexplored corner of our shrinking world. In every dream of discovery that leads us into the darkness, never to return.